Hey, good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, Joe. It's Dan.
Hey, Dan. How you doing, man?
Good, good.
Good, good. All right. Well, I tested the microphone. It's working.
I'm here too, Joe.
Hey, Chuck. How you doing, man?
Doing well. Had a bright, sunny, shiny day today. That helped.
Oh, nice. What's that? Sun?
Yeah, exactly.
My wife's starting to get really upset about the rain, man. Like, it's only 11 days in a row, honey. This is nothing.
Yeah.
We're just getting warmed up.
Even in mid-coast California, we got 2 to 4 inches rain. It's very unusual. We love it.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Just be glad you don't live up by north of Cambria and have a job in Monterey. That'd be bad.
Whoa, that would be tough for quite a while.
Yeah, did you see that mass wasting or whatever? They lost a huge chunk of that road. That was bad. Well, it looks like we've got 3 so far. We can wait an extra couple minutes. Let everyone get in. We don't want to wait too long, but at the same time, in this Zoom world, technical difficulties do happen. So we'll give them another minute or so. Welcome. Thanks for everyone that's here. Looks like Valerie is here and Darren from the county. Thank you guys both very much. And we have Bo Smith from the city. Thank you, Bo. Let me see if I can share my screen and get the agenda up. No, it's not what I was trying to do.
Joe, this is Dan. I think folks' video isn't coming through because it comes up with a message that it's being stopped by the leader. I don't know if that was your intent on this. Is there a toggle?
Wasn't the intent. Okay, hold on.
The host has stopped it.
It might have been because I was trying to share screen with the agenda packet here. Can you guys see that?
Could be. Yeah, we see the agenda package now.
Okay, good, good. Okay. Just go with that. I haven't got any messages about anybody being in the lobby or being unable to get in. That shouldn't be a problem.
Well, I certainly don't mind. I don't mind looking at you.
Sometimes when you set up the meeting, you have to click you can have everybody have their cameras on right off the bat. So that might be, maybe it just didn't get set up that way.
That's probably
It's
right.
fine with me too.
Yeah.
My hair doesn't look all that great today, so it's fine.
I like to say I've been having a bad hair pandemic. You know, it's just, it always looks bad. My wife hates it. Okay. Okay, good. It looks like Alex Campbell's joined us. Hi, Alex. Okay, so we're just missing Vidette, which is unusual. She got the invite and she was going to be here. Oh, there she is.
Okay, there we go. I don't know. This is working differently than most of them have.
There we go. All right, we've got, there was a couple of people that were in that purgatory, that waiting room area. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started then. We've got the board is here. Welcome to the Redwood Coast Transit Authority Board of Directors. We haven't got together in a while. We've got some new members on the team. So we will we'll dive right in. One thing we could do if you guys want is we could do introductions. You don't normally, but this is, you know, who describes normal anymore? So why don't staff, such as we are, we'll introduce ourselves, then we'll go through the new board members and then the guests. How's that sound?
Okay.
My name's Joe Rye. We have a team. Dan Heron and I manage the contractors. I'm officially the general manager. Dan does more of a critical, but more of a background role with the grants management, which is a huge part of what we do, and the administrative stuff. Dan?
Yeah, I'm the guy who is supposed to be out there aggressively pursuing grants and making sure that all the reports get in so the money keeps flowing. I help Joe. That's my role.
A funny little story. Dan and I have known each other for 21 or 2 years. We both worked at Slow Cog briefly together back in like 99, 2000. 2000 it was, yep. Okay, let's go through the board members. One other staff we have, Nicole is with us. Nicole Bursham is our clerk that takes some minutes and calls the roll. Nicole, you want to say hi?
Hello, my name is Nicole Bursham. Like he said, I take the role and I do the minutes for the meetings. I hope you guys can hear me. I have to work from home, so the internet might be a little spotty on my end. So I do apologize for that. And I'm excited about working with you all. It'll be an interesting and exciting thing.
Thanks, Nicole. Let's go through the board members. Whoever wants any particular order, who wants to go first?
I can go. This is Darren Short, newly elected to the Board of Supervisors. I had been on this commission as a city councilman in the past, so I'm glad to be back here and excited to get going on this as well.
Welcome, Darren.
Hi, and I'm Valerie Starkey, and I'm a newly appointed Board of Supervisor. And I'm as green as they come. I don't know much about Redwood Coast Transit Authority. I read the brochure, and that's as much as you've got from me so far, but I'm hoping to learn a lot.
Hey, thanks for being here.
Hi, this is Alex. Looking forward to getting in the weeds with you guys and see how we can make this community more accessible, all parts of this community more accessible to everybody. So thank you.
Thanks, welcome.
I'm Bo Smith, newly elected to the city council. I like Councilwoman Starkey. I don't know a whole lot about this, but I'm hoping to learn. So thank you.
Thanks, Bo. Thanks for being here.
Hi,
and I apologize. I apologize, Ms. Starkey. Supervisor Starkey, sorry.
You can call me whatever you want to call me. It's fine with me. I was a probation officer for 30 years, so I've been called a lot of names. So,
Vidette?
Hi, this is Vidette Roberts, and I formerly worked at RCT as a safety manager for about 6 years and did driving and dispatching. So I'd like to welcome all the new members. It's nice to have new faces aboard.
Thank you, Vidette. And we're really happy to have you on the board, not only with your transportation experience, your RCTA experience, and then now just as an experienced board member. You've been with us for 2-3 years now, so thanks for being here. What do we have for guests? We have from our elite operations team, we have Mr. Chuck Clarkson. Chuck, you want to say hi?
Hi, as Joe said, I'm Chuck Clarkson. I am the location manager here. I'm a First Transit employee, and I oversee the staff here in Crescent City and do everything we can to keep everything running like it should. We have a maintenance manager here, we have a safety manager, and we have 2 dispatchers that work here in the office. And then we currently have 10 drivers, and we're hoping to hire a couple more here real soon. So thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. And also from First Transit, we have, I don't want to butcher your title, Mark. Maybe you can introduce yourself. It's like regional VP or perhaps czar. What is your current title?
It's certainly not czar. Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Elias. I'm the region vice president for First Transit in the Northwest and responsible for supporting Chuck and RCT for our company. And I noticed there was a lot of new faces and new names, and haven't been on in a little while. And just wanted to check in and see how everybody's doing, and hopefully the tail end of this crazy pandemic, and just introduce myself. So hello, and thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here, Mark. Okay, do we miss anybody? I don't see, I'm checking the little grid. I think everybody introduced themselves. If so, we've had a lot of board turnover, so someone needs to call the meeting to order. Vidette, do you want to do that as the carryover from last year? And then we can do the roll call.
I'm sorry, I had to unmute it. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's now, let's see, I can't find the time on here. 5:27.
Great. Nicole, would you do roll call for us?
At this point, everybody is a director, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Director Roberts?
Here.
Director Short?
Here.
Director Starkey?
Here.
Director Smith?
Here.
Director Campbell?
Here.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. At this point, we do the Pledge of Allegiance. Does anyone want to volunteer to lead the group, or should we just all do it en masse?
How about we all do it in
All right. I'll start. Here we go. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Next up is public comment. You know, in this Zoom world, it's all different than the old days. I did not get forwarded any public comments, which come into the county IT office and then get sent back out. So unless anyone has anything they'd like to comment on that's not on the agenda, we'll consider it no public comment then. Okay, we'll close the public comment period up. The election of officers. This is the first thing we need to do. We need a nomination for a chair. And just to give a little background, I didn't do a staff report on this because the packet was already kind of intimidating and big anyway. But what has been the tradition, and it may be actually in our enabling bylaws, the position of chair has, in the 4 years, almost 5 that Dan and I have been with you guys, the position rotates back and forth between a county rep and a city rep each year. And 2021 is a county year. So with that said, you guys can nominate whoever you want.
Great. I'd like to nominate, this is Bo, sorry. I'd like to nominate Darren Short. He's been on this before. He should know about it.
And this is Valerie Starkey. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to nominate Darren Short as our new chair. Any discussion? Nicole, can you take the roll?
Director Roberts?
Yes.
Director Starkey?
Yes.
Director Smith?
Yes.
Director Campbell?
Yes.
And Chairman Short?
I guess that'd be yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. You want to take over on this next part? We need a vice chair. You need a partner.
Yes, I do. I would open nominations for vice chair for RCTA at this time.
I would like to nominate Bo Smith.
We have a nomination for Bo Smith. Is there a second out there?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second for Bo. Is there any further nominations? Okay, Nicole, if you would, in the absence of any other nominations, would you poll the vote?
Director Starkey?
Yes.
Director Smith?
Yes.
Director Roberts?
Yes.
Director Campbell?
Yes.
Chairman Short?
Yes.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you, guys. See if I can learn how to manage Adobe Acrobat here. Okay, we have no consent calendar items. It's just a placeholder, but we do not have any tonight.
Thank you, Joe. I was just trying to navigate to the agenda and cannot do that. My computer's not cooperating with me, so I appreciate you rolling that agenda up.
No worries. Can you see it? Okay.
Yes, I can. Thank you. Next, we have approval of the minutes from the October 26th meeting. And I know this is kind of awkward for some because hardly any of us were at the meeting. The approval of the minutes is not saying that you were there and knowing what was ruled on at the meeting. You were just approving of the minutes, just knowing that they are being properly submitted. That's all it is. So if I could get a motion for approval of the minutes.
This is Vanette Roberts, and I make a motion to approve the minutes of October 26, 2020.
Thank you, Vanette. Do we have a second out there?
It's Valerie Starkey. I will second.
Thank you, Valerie. Nicole, would you pull the vote, please?
Director Campbell?
Yes.
Director Smith?
Yes.
Director Roberts?
Yes.
Director Starkey?
Yes.
Chairman Short?
Yes. Okay. Next, Joe, oversight or overview and discussion of the 2019 RCTA short range transit plan with COVID-19 impacts.
Thank you, Chair Short. This is the main item for the evening. It's intended to be obviously discussion only, but it's intended to be an orientation, kind of like everyone getting their feet wet, because we do have such a new board, and in Chair Short's case, an experienced board member that's been gone a couple years. So we'll just kind of walk through, and it'll give us a chance to highlight, maybe focus. I'll just point out a few things that may have changed from when the report was written, mostly in 2018 and early 2019, then adopted in June of 2019. And as you know, a lot has changed since then. So a few of the high points that, let's see if I can get this to cooperate a little better. I need to minimize this guy. Okay, that's better for me anyway. So the short range transit plans are usually funded in different ways, but the money usually comes through to us, in our case, from the Del Norte Local Transportation Commission. And we usually get funded every 4, sometimes every 5 years. So the 18-19 SRTP looked ahead as far as 2024. And it was a snapshot in time in early 2019 is the way I like to look at it. It captured a lot of, obviously a planning document like this, for it to be useful, it captures a lot of deficiencies or things that we could do better or that we'd want to try. So, and this is no different. The report dives into some of the issues that were challenges to RCTA and some of which still are. One of the issues that it touches on is we had a lot of new technology, some of which wasn't even implemented quite yet in 2019. So we have implemented additionally some of the stuff since the SRTP was adopted, and the ridership at the time of adoption had been rising in the prior year, and it actually held steady this last year until the pandemic hit in March, and it's been down since. So we'll kind of switch off. Dan, do you want to, Dan wants to talk a little about some of the background points in the system overview, like chapter 1, and then we'll just switch off so you guys don't get bored.
I think you've capsuled it, Joe. Basically, when we got to thinking about this, the timing is really good to go back over this planning document. It was approved by the board. We all felt pretty comfortable with fairly comprehensive report, and you can refer back to it anytime you want to recall something having to do with the transit service, because it really is pretty comprehensive. It covered operations, it covered maintenance, it covered marketing, it covered planning and finance. And now the changes that have come since then, basically that's what we'll go over today. Joe, back to you, if you could walk us through.
Absolutely. So some of the changes that have happened, the system overview, the first few pages that describe the county really haven't changed a lot. So those are pretty well still stand true. The transit system overview does need some refreshing though, because the COVID's caused some chaos with us. Specifically, the amount of service we've been running was reduced proactively when the pandemic hit about a year ago. So in early April, we reduced service by about 30 to 33%, which is significant. Under normal circumstances, an agency wouldn't find themselves making that drastic of a cut, but this wasn't normal circumstances. At the time, we saw that our projected revenue sources, our main one, which is our TDA revenue, which is statewide California sales tax that you return to source. So it's based on proceeds and economic activity. We saw that dropping with the stay-at-home orders dropping precipitously right away. So the board was proactive in authorizing us to cut a package of our lowest. Luckily, we'd already sort of had a cut list for a rainy day of some services that weren't producing very well. So we took that package to the board in April and they approved those reductions. The biggest and easy of which to remember is the Saturday service. So prior to that day, RCTA was running Monday through Saturday with a pretty robust Saturday platform. All of our regional services ran on Saturday and a reduced version of the local stuff in Crescent City ran prior to last year. So that was probably the most painful of the services that was cut was Saturday. But we also reduced some trips on the regional services. So for example, we used to run pre-pandemic, we did 3 round trips a day down to Arcata and back on Route 20, a south leg of the 20, we call it. We reduced that to 2. Prior to the pandemic, we did 5 round trips to Lucky 7 Casino up by the border in Smith River. We cut that down to 4. We reduced the last one at night. And then we did 3 trips a day out to Gasky before the pandemic. And we took out 1, the late afternoon one. So all the regional services basically lost 1 round trip at the time. So cumulatively, that was about 1/3 of our service cut. Then along came the CARES Act funds, and we'll have Dan touch on that a little bit more in the financial chapter. But so we proactively cut service back, and then we got one-time assistance from the federal government that's pretty robust. So if you're a gambling person, depending on how long the pandemic effects last, we may come out of this even better financially off than we were before, or we may not. It really depends on how long, you know, when we reinstate service and how long the economic impacts of the pandemic hit. So that's where we are today. So we're, you know, what is this, February 2021? So we traditionally do 1. I mean, we're not bound to any tradition, but we've been doing 1 service change a year in the summer. Sometimes July 1st, sometimes mid-August, but definitely before the academic school year starts. So as we look towards summer of 21, hopefully, fingers crossed, the COVID situation continues to improve a little bit. We may be wanting to reinstate some of that service. So that'll be some of the strategic planning we do when we look ahead at what the board needs to think about in the next few meetings, the next few months. The chapter 2 of the SRTP just touched on our public involvement. What was unique about this SRTP and really optimal, I thought, is we did extensive market research. We did a separate study right before the SRTP that garnered us a lot of public input and some really fresh data about what the public likes and doesn't like about the system and transit needs out there. So that allowed the actual SRTP, the plan itself, not to focus so much on gathering data, but more on analyzing the data and crunching it. So we did some public involvement during the actual SRTP, but most of it was done in late 2017 and early 18 as in a prior study that was then just cited in the short range plan. The chapter 3 mission statement, goals and performance standards, there's been no changes there, but what was significant about that chapter is it was our first one like that. RCTA prior to this document never really had a official mission statement and performance standards to judge our services by. For example, when a route might need to be cut if it's not producing enough ridership, or that sort of thing, which comes in very handy when either economic downturns or pandemics hit. So yeah, so that was the first time we had that, chapter 3. I'll take a pause real quick. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I do. I have questions.
Go ahead.
Have you guys been involved with the economic strategic planning with the city at all?
No, we've not. We have not.
And are you guys going to be?
We would love to, yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I would recommend it. There's a lot of good stuff going on, getting ready to happen. COVID's eventually going to come to an end, you know, fingers crossed sooner than later. But, you know, and with the park upgrades that are going to happen, you know, I see a real future with tourism with your services.
Okay. I will reach out to Eric and see how we can get involved. We have been, you know, we do talk with the city on different stuff. But yeah, that would be great to better integrate us into that planning effort. Any other questions, or should we continue on? Okay, I'll go ahead and take chapter 4 then. Dan, if you want to maybe talk about a few things in chapter 5 after that, that's a good one. That'd be a good one to throw the mic back and forth. Chapter 4 was looking at our technology, essentially, what we had for capturing and helping management at all levels, whether it be the dispatcher in real time in the office there in Crescent City, or, you know, me working remotely, working on planning a route or analyzing performance. So at the time of the publication and adoption of the plan, we didn't yet have our AVL CAD system, which is our automatic vehicle location system that produces, basically runs all the time the buses are running, producing data on where they are, at what time, how many people get on at what stop and get off at which stop, and on-time performance, as well as a few other things. That was implemented shortly thereafter, though. It was in process during the adoption of the plan. So it's been in place now for a year and a half, pushing towards 2 years. And it's been a huge help. I mean, it's, without these AVL CAD systems, it reminds me of early in my career when you had to go out and sample or pour through paperwork from the driver's manifest and hope they, you know, wrote everything down accurately. And so this has been a whole new world of data for us, which is great. So that was implemented in 19. I would describe it as kind of a lower middle end AVL CAD system. For our first one, it's obviously better than nothing. It has some limitations in the reporting, and sometimes, you know, you got to take the data with a grain of salt and maybe, you know, query it in different ways to make sure that you're getting accurate data. But I've been doing this for 20 years. I remember my first AVL CAD back in the late 90s was a $1 million product. And it also needed a lot of care and feeding. So it's just the nature of the beast. So Double Map, we obtained that through our contract for operations and maintenance with First Transit. So they brought that to us, and they're actually the client. So we're sort of a third party. So if we have an issue with it, we communicate via First Transit to Double Map and vice versa. The engine for the data is we have tablet computers that RCTA does own that are installed in each vehicle. So those tablets have software that the drivers interact with every time passengers board. And then they're obviously in tune with the vehicles, so they can emit the location and other data into the software system. We had just completed, I think at the time of the SRTP, our mobile ticketing, or just after that anyhow, which is our smartphone app called Token Transit, where you can download the app and through your Token Transit account, where you set up your credit card or debit card and your login information, so you can purchase your bus passes or your single ride fares for RCTA without using cash and without, you know, much interaction with the driver. In that case, they just flash their phone that has a validation image on the phone, flash it to the driver, and go sit down. So and its adoption's been slow and steady. We have a few clients that use it. It's got the capability to be even more, perhaps if we're able to get institutional buyers that buy like bulk passes from us, if we could get them to possibly take advantage of the technology. But we're happy with it. We've had it. We paid nothing for it up front. One of the horses that we're going to, no, I love horses, I'm just kidding. One of the things we're going to kind of pound on with you guys in the next 3 months is we're relatively poor on capital money for vehicle purchases, and not operating money, but the operating money is what pays for the drivers to drive around and pick people up. But the capital money is what pays for like bus stop shelters or new buses. So that's a challenge that still exists for our CTA, pandemic or not. It was one of the major themes of the SRTP is how we manage that shortfall on the capital side. So with Token Transit, it was really nice that their model is they come in and set you up without any capital costs, and they take just a percentage though of all the sales made. So we lose 10% of the value of the fares that are sold through it, but there was no upfront costs, so we were able to implement it rather easily. One of the recommendations, and I'll close chapter 4, one of the recommendations was to get a reporting dashboard, which there's several out there. TransTrack's one of them. But what they do is they sort of sit on top of, for example, Double Map, and they're more intuitive on pulling reports together, stuff that at a glance, managers like me or Chuck can get a feel for what's happening today, or maybe what the OTP, the on-time performance was last week or last month. Makes it easier. Double Map, you can get a lot of it. It's just a little more clunky on the querying and reporting. So these dashboards are out there, and they can take data that's already being generated by the vehicles and dispatchers and paratransit software, and they can present it to you in an easier to digest format for folks like you or me. We don't have that yet. It's out there. We could either find capital money to buy a system, or we do have an operations contract renewal coming up that we have to rebid and everything. So much like we did 5 years ago when we included requirements for the Double Map to be in there and for our paratransit software. 5 years ago, we had no technology whatsoever. It was magnets and paper and truly old school transit. And now we've come a long way. So one thing is we could maybe require a dashboard be included in any proposal for our next contract. That would be a way to, it operationalizes what otherwise would be a capital cost, but hey, it gets the job done. Any questions on chapter 4? That was a lot. Go ahead.
It's also kind of a direction in the future too. We're Joe and I are part of a roundtable. Far North Roundtable actually gets together by Zoom every month and goes over issues that affect more than one transit property, especially the through routing of trips. And California is very interested in our area here because we've got that roundtable and has been actively talking with us about a fair process that they're working on now, so that you could purchase a ticket in one place that would operate across the border into other transit properties. So you could technically, officially purchase your ticket all the way to San Francisco with the changes that are needed in between in one swipe of the pass. So this is probably coming to all of California down the road. We're particularly pleased with how it's coming here. Joe, if you're finished, I could talk about chapter 5.
Yeah, let's talk about chapter 5. And one thing I forgot, when we introduced ourselves, we just said we knew each other 21 years ago, and we've been working in transit a long time. So we can maybe, if you want to give a little bio on your transit career, it's very impressive. And then I can do the same when I grab the mic later. But yeah, we should tell them a little bit about who we are. Go ahead, Dan. Yep. Chapter 5.
I like that. Yeah. Joe and I both came through the transportation planning side of things, and I was with first with a regional group called SlowCog. And then later, I spent quite a bit of time in Caltrans doing transit planning in District 5. We'll get into Joe's. Joe, I'm going to quickly go through Chapter 5 and then kick it back to you if you could describe your background in there.
Sounds good.
Chapter 5 took a look at the model that we currently have and we will continue to have for RCTA. It's not the only way to manage a transit operation. In many cases, a full-time person or a half-time person is in charge of that, or it's housed in other ways. The team looked at it, recommended continuing, and so the model itself takes all of the tasks out and has consultants bid on them, and then chooses someone for the next 3 to 5 years. So that will be put in place later on. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. But that the current management model process does include outside consultants with expertise in operations, in management, in finance, and in proposal writing. I've been fortunate enough to get pretty good results in the proposal writing there. And Joe has a tremendous background in practical and the educational side of transportation. Joe, take it away.
Yeah, don't let Dan fool you. He is a grant writing whiz for sure. Yeah, I think we've got our lineup, pretty much in the batting order that we want. Dan is great at grant writing and grant management and reporting, which is a huge deal for us. One of the trends over the 20-some years I've been doing transit here in California, more funding sources, but they're smaller. And they all come with reporting requirements. And Dan does a great job of keeping us on the right side of that. So while I do some of the grant reporting, he does most of it, and he does all the applications to keep our funding coming along. My background goes back to transit when I was in Denver, when I was an undergrad at Metro State, and then in grad school at University of Colorado. And then since then, I've been working in mostly all in transit. I did 1 year of land use planning and about pulled my hair out. So then I went to, I met Dan when I was doing a 1.5 years of transportation planning for SlowCog. And since then, I've been doing transit only. I managed Santa Maria Transit for 5 years, which is in northern Santa Barbara County. That was an exciting 5 years for that agency. It was fast growth, which has its own set of challenges. Then I went to the Bay Area and worked for Wheels, it's called, LAVTA, Tri-Valley, in the Pleasanton, Dublin area. I was there for 3 years as their deputy director and in charge of planning and capital projects. And then I moved to the North Bay and did Petaluma for 8 years, a small system, kind of like this, a little bigger than this, but fairly small, as their transit manager. So I've got a lot of experience, small agencies where the manager also has to be a transit planner, because that's really my passion. I'm a planner, service planner especially, but I also, I love managing the service too, because you get a chance to wear a lot of hats. So that's where we come from. We've been here since April of 2016, right, Dan?
Yeah, that's it exactly, yeah.
Yep. So chapter six of the SRTP. Do we have any questions? Should we move on to chapter 6? All right, hearing none. Chapter 6 is where we did our service planning alternatives. At the time, we were under the realization that the system probably had built itself up as big as it could, as far as big in the terms of number of service hours that RCTA was providing. And we came to that conclusion because there really wasn't enough local money, which is kind of our operating money, is mostly what we call local from the TDA, or which is the Transportation Development Act, which is a 1/4-cent sales tax, and also the STA, which is State Transit Assistance. So those two transit funds were being all poured into operations. And what that meant is we didn't really have quite enough money to meet our capital needs. So while there were a number of potential expansions analyzed and listed out in the tables in the SRTP, I think we all knew if there was going to be any expansion, it would probably be incremental and modest, because unless basically our revenues were projected to be pretty flat and expenses going up. So the recommendations were just to expand our tripper routes, which are designed to serve the schools to attract the student market, and then also to continue to work on our customer amenities and bus stops and stuff on our regional service to be more attractive to tourism. So what we were able to do before the pandemic hit, we started Route 300. That started in August of 2019, so shortly after the plan was adopted. And that was first a morning tripper that collected students and took them to the high school in the 1920 school year. So it was, we have a robust yellow bus system in town for the school district. So with that in mind, the successes of the Route 300 were never expected to be earth-shaking. And we got off to a bit of a slow start, but the ridership was growing pretty good through the winter until the pandemic hit in March of 2020. So at that point, we ended up finishing that school year out. The Route 300 doesn't run when school's not in session for in-person learning. So we ended up, the AM Route 300 made its debut then in 1920. But then we did not roll, we were planning to roll it out. In fact, we had an afternoon counterpart for it approved for the 2021 school year. But the 2021 school year has been not a traditional school year. There hasn't been much in-person instruction. So we've held back on that. So the 300 has not been running, nor have we received any requests for it. It's just a strange year to court the student market, to say the very least. So other than that, we didn't do any other expansions. Then when as I mentioned earlier, we reduced service actually to right size ourselves when the stay-at-home orders hit. We've done some stuff, and I guess this is probably the best section to talk about some of our cleaning stuff we've been doing. Yeah, why don't we talk about it here? It's kind of operational. So some of the stuff we did, obviously this COVID challenge, I didn't see it coming. I never, never imagined this kind of a threat to our system or to transit in general in the States. But what we've done is almost immediately when the CARES Act funds were identified and actually approved for us, that's money we can use for anything COVID related, which is inclusive enough to mean even backfilling lost sales tax, which is huge because we've lost, a lot of our sales tax money during the economic shutdown. But it can also be used for additional new expenses that are COVID related. So we entered into a contract with a third-party cleaning service with Palm Industries, they're called. So Palm's been coming in every night as we're winding down with the service day. They come in for a couple, 3 hours and deep clean the buses. So every bus gets a deep cleaning and a disinfecting each night. And we're really pleased with that. I mean, obviously it's hard to measure it, but we haven't had a lot of COVID problems on the system, and certainly that has something to do with it. In addition, the board approved a premium pay for the staff during the pandemic, and that's all CARES reimbursable. So $2 an hour increase was given to them last spring, and that's still in place, and it's been very, very popular. It's helped Chuck a lot keeping operators in the seats. Then what's next? Oh, no, I almost forgot about Nick and the sneeze guard. So then in addition, we wanted to help better protect the operators inside the buses, protect them from germs, microbes, COVID. So we actually, our maintenance manager is amazingly talented guy. He was able to design and construct and install these barriers. We call them like sneeze guard or driver barriers, but they're in each of the buses to better protect the drivers from the passengers, which in our little style buses is not that easy to do. So those were also done real quickly in the spring, and they've been very popular with the drivers. Looking forward, this winter, we're waiting for installation. They should be in soon. Probably by the next time we meet, we'll have, we invested in UV light, germ killing systems for each bus. These are the latest trend in the transit industry, trying to make the passenger experience as safe as possible. These units, the ones we ended up buying, actually attack the COVID problem in two ways. And I'm not a scientist, and you're going to see that real quick. But in layman's terms, one way that they have a UV light bulb system that kills 99.9% of virus molecules in the air. So that runs constantly. But then in addition to that, it also emits a hydrogen peroxide formula in low dosage that also clears the air, like you see in a hospital or medical office setting. So together they've been very effective and popular in the business. And we felt that with our CARES money, that this was a wise investment to get these in the fleet. And we ordered a few extra ones for our building, for the Maintenance and Operations Center. So those are due. They were originally due now. We were going to get them about the 1st of February. They've been delayed, but we expect them soon. So hopefully by the end of the month. So that's something I think we can also market. So as we start to come out of this, we're going to need to restore customer confidence in the cleanliness of the vehicles. We're seeing it all over the country that transit ridership's way down. Everyone's, not only is demand less because a lot of people are working on Zoom instead of going to the office, but people are also scared to get in a vehicle with a bunch of strangers. So we're going to need to market against that. And I think this is going to be a tool or we get to do that.
I have a question.
Yes, please. Thank you.
What,
go ahead.
In the marketing part of this chapter 4, what was the demographic that you guys are, like, the customer base? Who are you guys going after the most?
Good question. The current ridership demographic is mostly transit dependent, meaning it's folks that for whatever reason don't have driver's licenses or much access to a car. It could be due to health conditions or disabilities or any number of things. So mostly our ridership is the transit dependent, and that has a lot of ramification. As far as growth markets in the plan, you'll see the target was middle school and high school students, especially the latter, college students, and tourism. So those are areas we think there's future growth, especially with the students, if we play our cards right. But obviously this pandemic is a brutal blow to that in the short run. But once we come out of it, we think we can again jump back in and continue to grow our students, because that was growing prior to March of 2020. But I hope that answers your question. So mostly our riders are transit dependent. We are starting to make some headway with students and some travelers, regional travelers. A lot of our folks are transit dependent, whether they're riding the local buses just to get around Crescent City to the store or whatnot, or if they may need to go, they may be going to Humboldt to specialized medical or something. So most of them are transit.
Well, yeah, it answered my question, but I was curious, like, if I were to see a commercial for the services. You know what I mean? Like that commercial is going to target an audience, and I get it, the transit dependent audience. The you know, yeah, you answered my question. Thank you.
You're welcome. No, it's a very good question. It's a huge part of what we our strategy and what we're trying to do is how can we appeal, pandemic aside, we got to get through this is a special once in a lifetime, let's hope, event. But beyond that, we need to do a good job of moving our transit dependents so that they ride as much as possible, as much as they need to, and then try to appeal to some of these, what's the word? I've heard a buzzword, like transit disadvantaged markets where we have a chance. You know, your average 30-year-old guy with a nice job and a nice truck or whatever, they're not going to ride the bus unless it's tough chasing those riders. But folks like teenagers that maybe can't drive yet, or seniors, or tourists that maybe come and they arrive in the area and they don't have a car, those are more of the markets we think we could grow. Dan, do you want to talk about the CTSA? You're very knowledgeable on that subject. Chapter 7 was our implementation plan.
Chapter 7 describes some new responsibilities that came with us. I guess our partner, the DNLTC, has decided that we should be the repository for a thing that's called Consolidated Transportation Services Agency, which throws some new dollars our way that we could share with the transit contractor to try to coordinate services, do better, particularly on our dial-a-ride issues. And a couple of targets for CTSA work usually are the ADA riders on the dial-a-ride. And we wanted to, this past year, set up a travel training unit, getting people to take that first transit ride, particularly people who may find it difficult to navigate our system, whether it be because of physical limitations, mental limitations, or simply they've never tried it before. And that's travel training. We also wanted to refine and actually build in some good ways to make sure that our Americans ADA, the Disabled Act, funding is going where it ought to be. The people who can't ride our fixed route services do qualify for ADA point-to-point service. Now, those things are good goals, and they will happen, but again, COVID stepped in. At this point, most of those activities, while they've gotten off the ground, still have a whole lot of development to do. But it's an exciting new chapter in what we're doing, trying to get involved with other service providers in the community and work on mutually beneficial problems. That's that chapter. Chapter 8 is marketing plan. Would you like to talk about that, Joe?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Then you can take a big role in the financial one, chapter 9. Marketing plan, I'm not going to spend too much on just because the COVID's, upended a lot of things. But the plan is good. The chapter's there. And for when we come out of this, we can probably look at some of the ideas a little more closely that are in there. What we are doing marketing wise since summer of 19 when this was adopted is we have a free fares program. It's still in place. I mean, it's just very slowed down by the COVID, but the free fares program is covered by a grant. We've been doing it for 3-4 years now, and the grant pays us back the fares. So basically, if you're a student, it started with the college, and then we expanded it at the College of Redwoods, then to include Humboldt State, and then just before the pandemic in 2019, we expanded it to include high school students, and then 2020 we expanded it to include middle school, but we just really haven't pursued that market yet, thanks to the pandemic. But those folks can ride free. So what we've done to promote that is we've self-advertised on our buses. So we have an advertising revenue program now that's about 3 years old that we manage. And some of the proceeds from that, up to $10,000 a year is the current policy, we can use to support marketing. So we've been advertising on some available spots on our buses, promoting the free ride program, as well as we maintain the website, redwoodcoasttransit.org. We use Facebook as like probably our biggest outreach tool. We were running Facebook ads last winter before the not this winter we're just getting out of it, the one before the pandemic. We were doing a lot of Facebook advertising to promote to the students and to families, and that was pretty well received and pretty successful. We're live on Google Maps, so if you plan a trip and if you're a Google Maps user like some of us are, if you hit the transit alternative, you'll get our information on how to ride the bus, maybe if you want to go down to Humboldt or to wherever. So we're in that. That's where a lot of our marketing efforts been so far. And there's been there was identified in the plan that we need a lot more amenities at our bus stops. This has been an ongoing issue since Redwood Coast Transit was formed 20 years ago or whatever it was. So we continue to fight that battle. We've got 6 new shelters that arrived in the fall, 4 of which are already installed. We're working with Caltrans, trying to get encroachment permits, because we have like 4 spots we want to put in that are on the 101. So that falls in Caltrans jurisdiction. So that makes it a little more challenging, but we really like working with the local D1 folks. They're very supportive. So we're working with them to hopefully place the last 4 or so shelters in this particular year's project in the right of way on the 101. But there's a lot more room for improvement. We have bus stop needs that are going to last years to address, but we're aggressively addressing them. That's a pretty good segue to the financials.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and get us started?
One of the things Joe didn't mention enough of, I think, it was the fact that we got the board's approval to spend $10,000 on developing some of the advertising program, and it's returned $2 for every dollar spent for the last couple of years. It was a wise way to get our name out there. So we're pleased with that project itself. That's one of the few times where sources of revenue are actually going up. The financial plan that is in the short range transit plan, it's actually on page 237. If you want to see a capsule for what 5 years of budgeting should look like, the income and the outgo for it, refer to that page on your short range plan. And of course, that was hard hit by COVID-19, particularly as Joe mentioned, the sales tax revenues, which is almost $500,000 of our annual funding. So we're not talking peanuts when we say it's 27 to 30% impacted by the downed economy. But COVID, the federal legislature and their recovery bill, the CARES Act, actually gave us a series of fundings that has mounted up to more than we would have expected, and probably more than is absolutely needed in order to offset all of our losses on revenue, even the fare box, and go for probably 2 years. So we're not as bad a shape as you would think. Unfortunately, it can't be used for, it's much more difficult to be used for capital. One of the things you should know about our budget is it's always a little easier to find ways to enhance the operations, but capital, the buses are very expensive. We do have to replace them on a periodic basis. Fortunately, recently we've had some luck with some of the grants coming in. We've got a third federal grant called 5310 that is going to bring us a couple of vehicles too. So all in all, we're not that far off from that page showing the 5-year the financial plan for the agency. The agency is a robust, small transit when it compared with the rest of California. Fairly high level of service and running quite economically. I think one of the strangest parts of COVID has been our ability to suddenly become nimble, quick on our feet to adjust to realities and cut services when we needed to. So it's not a bad picture that we can foresee for the financial part of our operations here. And with that, I end my report and open it to questions or comments. Joe, what do you think?
No, well put. And I think we're running a little over, so we'll go right to questions. We're going to talk more about money at future meetings too. So, and we have our, yeah. So we'll go right to questions.
Yeah, I think we talk about money at just about every meeting.
You got it.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just want to say what a great presentation this was. This was well thought out. It really gave me a complete overview, and I'm really grateful for your time on this. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any of the board members?
I don't have a question, but statement mostly. I'm with Supervisor Starkey. I thought it was a good presentation, and it definitely caught me off guard of how well you guys presented it. I definitely feel like I'm in the know now.
I as well. I really want to thank everybody for the presentation, and I'll probably be in touch with some of you. I got some maybe some one-off questions that I want to ask, but thank you. It was very informative.
You're very welcome. And yep, your questions are welcome as well. It's a lot to learn. It's like drinking from a fire hose at this point. But yeah, thank you guys for your patience and letting us walk through this planning document. It seemed like the best way to orient the board.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. All right, on to the next item on the agenda is the discussion of the upcoming meeting schedule and agenda items. Does anybody have any discussion that they'd like to bring up on this item?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, Bo.
For the upcoming meeting times, I mean, you guys, you know, it's up to the majority, but it's best for me if it's after 5. I'm sorry for that. It's just I think my schedule.
We are looking at 5:15, isn't that right?
Yeah, we're looking at 5:15, and if the board wants to, we can push it even back even further. I mean, yeah, it's really up to the board's prerogative because every board has different schedule constraints.
Does 5:15 work for you, Bo?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, can we get a motion to adopt this meeting schedule?
I'll make a motion.
I'll make that.
Well, we had two guys making a motion, so I think we got
And I'll second.
First by
I'll
Mr.
make
Smith and seconded by Mr. Campbell. I'm sorry, Bo, did I interrupt you?
No, if the clerk or I'll make the motion to adopt the meeting schedule to 5:15.
Beautiful, and I believe Mr. Campbell seconded that. If there's no other discussion, Nicole, could you pull that vote, please?
Director Starkey?
Yes.
Director Roberts?
Yes.
Director Smith?
Yes.
Director Campbell?
Yes.
Chairman Short?
And yes, thank you very much for that. Now we'll move on to operations report.
I believe that would be me, Chairman Short.
Hey, go ahead, Chuck.
Okay. I just give you a quick rundown on the local operations here. Driver-wise, our staffing is adequate. We could use a couple more drivers. We have a interview happening tomorrow, and another application just came in today. Thought we had a person that was moving into the area this month wanting to go to work for us, but they ran into problems where they're at and aren't coming until the summer now. So that kind of set us back a little bit on our hopes there. But we are getting applications, and we're pursuing hiring a couple more people. We have not had any road breakdowns for a while, knock on wood. Our maintenance has been doing really well. Joe mentioned our maintenance manager, Nick West, a little bit ago, and yeah, he does a very, very good job and keeps us running. And since I've been here, I've never had to be worried if we could make a route or not because we didn't have enough buses. Nick takes care of us there. Right now, we do have one bus down. We'll probably be down for the rest of the week. Nick is working on getting that fixed and back up and going. We have had a little bit of interruption for service in this month. Last chance grade is, of course, a reality for all of us. The slide impacted us, and then high winds impacted us on one day for our second route 20 to Arcata and back. We try not to do that very often because that runs the risk of leaving people stranded down there overnight, and we don't want to do that. Ridership tends to lead toward being 170 to 220 a day. Of course, the weather impacts that some, but that's generally the numbers that we see. So that's my quick report. Do you have any questions for me?
So I have a question. With the ridership, you said 170 to 200 a day. Is that the 30% less because of COVID, or is that typical numbers?
That's the 30% less because of COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we used to run much higher.
Yeah, it's probably 50% less, to be honest. I think we were probably averaging around 400 a day before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions for Chuck on the operations report?
I have a question. This is Vidette Roberts. I was just wondering, only 10 drivers, are you having to work overtime?
No, we are, like I say, we are adequate. So there's very little overtime going on right now, but I can't afford to lose anybody else and keep that going. So that's why we're working hard to get somebody hired.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. Chairman Short, one other thing I would like to say for those of you who are new to the board, if you want to stop by and get a tour of our facilities and have a chance to meet you, then you're welcome at any time to stop by, see what we're doing here and get a firsthand view of it.
Thank you, Chuck. That was valuable. I remember when you guys invited us over when I was on the city council, it was enlightening to see the operation. So I encourage the members of the authority here to do that if they would like. So Joe, would you go ahead with the general manager's report then?
If you let me hurry, Chair Short. No, I definitely will. And I wanted to mention that speaking of tours and visiting the facility, before I forget, going back to our schedule of upcoming meetings, we do our annual workshop. I mean, this is Zoom world, so we'll have to see how we do it this year. But in a normal world, we do our annual workshop at the facility. So, and then we tour around and show the board around the facility and meet the staff like before and after that. That's traditionally, it's slated for like March or April each year before we go into budget season. So we have that for like late March, I think it is this year, but we'll have to see if we can do that in person. If not, we might have to put off that until maybe the fall or summer when hopefully things are better.
Well, I think even with COVID, we should still be able to, I mean, with the size of the facility there, we should still be able to do that in person and abide by COVID rules.
Yeah, that'd be great. And those that want to visit can. Those that, yeah, if there's anyone that's not comfortable, they can Zoom it. We'll be Zooming from there. I'm not there tonight, but often during the pandemic, I often come down to meet staff and take care of business and do the Zooms from the office. It's great to be there in person for sure. Yeah, that sounds great. So we'll see as we get closer to the March meeting on that, if we can go ahead and invite people to come over to the shop. The only thing I wanted to mention beyond that on the report tonight is you should have received in your email a few nights ago correspondence from the law offices of Black and Rice regarding their plans and how it relates to our CTA. They are, for many years, they've been our transit agency legal counsel. And it sounds like, you know, they've had some attrition. They've had a couple attorneys leave the firm, one of which was ours. Autumn Luna was assigned to our CTA. You know, Darren and Vidette will remember her attending. We didn't overuse her, but a couple times a year for sure she would be there. She moved on to the county. And then, so we got this letter. It sounds like Black and Rice would like to transition away from the RCTA contract. They're downsizing their scope. So they reached out to Autumn Luna at the county, and it sounds like the county's interested in taking us on as a client and providing us legal services, much like they already do. We didn't cover this. We flew through so much tonight, but the county actually does our financials. So when bills come in, you know, I process them, code them, and approve them, and we send them to the auditor's office for payment. So they're already a big part of what we do. So this wouldn't be unprecedented. This would be just adding legal services as well. So that's what the letter was all about. I'm told, I believe Martha said that the county will consider this first. Who's going to be taking on those legal services? Go ahead. Sorry, could you repeat? Who's going to be taking on those legal services? Well, the county's offering to. It sounds like. We haven't not got that officially in writing yet, but according to discussions between Martha Rice and the county council, they're interested and willing to take us on. So I think at this point, they were going to make the first move. Both this board, you folks, and the county supervisor would need to approve it if we were to move in that direction. Otherwise, it sounds like we might need to find another outside counsel, but the county certainly makes sense as a viable alternative, but it's really up to the board.
Yeah, and Autumn was familiar with you, and we have her now over at the county. So that might be a perfect scenario anyway. So we'll keep that in mind.
Excellent. That's all I have for the manager.
All right, thank you, Joel. Is there any announcements from anybody here on the board? I don't have any, and Joe and Chuck, you guys have pretty much covered it. So I guess without any other comments or questions, we've reached the end of our agenda.
Could I make a note before we adjourn?
Certainly, Joe.
The date for adjournment, or the date on the bottom of the agenda, says our next meeting will be Monday the 22nd, which is less than 3 weeks away, which is very tight turnaround. And we just also found out that the city might be having a meeting that evening of importance as well. So there'd be a conflict. So being as we're not meeting in person at Flynn anyway, if the board doesn't mind, we might want to look at a Zoom meeting maybe at the end of the month, like a week after that, if the board's willing to entertain that.
I would be agreeable to that. Does anybody have any objections to moving that date?
As long as it just, yeah, I'm agreeable too, as long as I don't have a conflict with whatever. And who knows, I'm just the alternate here. I don't know if Supervisor Berkowitz will be back.
Sounds good. I will make sure to, in advance, send out a feeler poll to see what dates are available for everyone before we settle on one.
Sounds good, Joe. And with that, I guess we will adjourn until our next board meeting, and the date is to be announced.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Great meeting. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Nicole, do you want to can you hang around for a couple minutes to talk to Dan?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. We'll go ahead and just keep this one rolling for a minute. We've got pretty good connection.
Keep on running. Yeah. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Dan. How's it going?
Not bad. I emailed you at 1099, and you'll get one in the mail too. And Joe, same for you. But we wanted to talk to you about continuing for 5 years and even kind of solidifying that continuation by putting you in our proposal, which is coming up. Now, it doesn't mean like you're an ironclad contractor. You couldn't even go also with somebody else's proposal, but it would be a planning item to include you in your current capacity. But we wondered also if you were interested in helping bird dog some of these other projects. They're not quite secretarial, but they're kind of a cut above that. The permit process is essentially paperwork, but it takes somebody on the ground to nag and be there to talk to Caltrans or whoever else it is that is holding up the process. It would help us. Most of that would be with shelters, but there are times when we need pictures. And we thought that there's a number of things that you could really help us with on the ground, but wanted to kind of sound you out. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that would be great. You know, actually, I was adding something to my business anyways. We just got a drone and a brand new camera, and we were going to do realty pictures anyways. So cool. That's actually perfect because that could get advertisement out there for my business itself. So excellent. I wouldn't mind doing that if you guys needed me to take pictures of certain shelters or a place where you want to put a shelter or, you know, something like that. And I don't mind making calls for people. I have no problem with that. I'm actually working on, we're working on building a house somewhere and putting an office at the house so that it would make it easier for me to do my house life and work at the same time. So hopefully that'll work out better. And I was going to say, I appreciate that there was a meeting on the 22nd because my husband just got named chief in the Navy and his pinning ceremony is that weekend. So I was actually very happy that there was a meeting on that day so that I didn't have to request it not being there.
Right. So the moving it off the 22nd is bad or good?
Good. It's good because he'll have his pinning ceremony to become chief is on that weekend. So we won't be in town that weekend at all.
Yeah, that works out great. Yeah, like one just not to go too deep into, but one of the things we were thinking that has been falling through I mean, everything's fallen through the cracks with the pandemic. One thing that's a challenge for us because we're so far away like once a month stocking. We got a pretty good network of bus schedule brochures in businesses and apartments around town. But then, you know, a couple, 3 months will go by and Chuck and his team don't have time to really do it. I'd rather like work in partnership with you maybe to restock schedules around town. Would that be something you'd be willing to do? Drive around and meet people, go into the motels and restock their brochures and stuff?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I can do it however often as you guys need me to do it. I just need to know where to pick up the brochures, or if you want me to keep them at my office, or how you would like me to do it. But yeah, I can definitely do that.
Okay, that sounds great.
Watch out, Nicole. I'm writing this down.
It's being recorded according to the little red blinking dot.
It would really help us out, Nicole. We appreciate this. And as the proposal process goes forward, I'll be sure to run everything past you. So what we're putting in there is stuff that you're willing to do.
Okay,